We're back with our breaking news. American Amanda Knox convicted in Italy tonight of killing her roommate. The jury deliberated for 11 hours before finding Knox guilty of murder. The court was silent when her fate was announced, silent except for Knox, who was sobbing while the verdict was being read. And yesterday, she pleaded in Italian with the jury to find her not guilty. Listen to what she said.
During these days, I wrote on paper in front of me that I am afraid. I am not calm. I wrote down that I was afraid to lose myself. I fear being defined as someone I am not, and by actions that I did not commit. I am afraid of having an assassin's mask forced on my skin.
Amanda Knox in court yesterday, a murder convict tonight. But is she really a killer, or was the 22-year-old American the victim of a rush to judgment? Joining us again, Amanda's good friend Madison Paxton and her aunt Janet Huff. Madison, as I said, you visited Amanda prior in prison. What was that experience like? I mean, how was she holding up in prison? And as we look at video, of her father tonight leaving the courtroom, being chased by Italian media, being pushed around, people yelling assassin at him, and I guess clapping that his daughter's been convicted. What was it like for you visiting a town where there was so much resentment against your friend?
Well, to start, just the act of visiting her alone was one of the strangest, most memorable experiences of my life. To have to go through prison walls to see one of the most gentle, kind, nonviolent people I've ever known, it still baffles me that that experience ever needed to happen. In regards to what Kurt went through with hearing people yell assassin in regards to Amanda, it breaks my heart that that happened. But when I was in Italy, that wasn't my experience. When I was in Perugia, I was there for all summer. I met some of the best people I've ever met in my life, some of the most supportive, kind people who are also fighting for Amanda.
Janet, in terms of the evidence, I mean, you were saying that, they changed several times. The prosecutors changed their motive and their view of the case. Do you think you really have good grounds for an appeal? And on what specific issues?
On pretty much every issue that they brought up, we have grounds for appeal. They had no motive. There's no evidence of her whatsoever in the room where Meredith was killed. They have proof that Meredith and Amanda got along just fine. They were good friends.
Because the prosecutors were claiming that that she hated Meredith.
No, that's absolutely not true. They have text messages back and forth, even up to the day before, where they're saying, "I'll see you tomorrow, XOXO." They were not enemies. They were not liking each other. They were friends.
We have a picture of Meredith I want to put up, because Amanda was also portrayed badly in the British media. Madison, how much do you think these media portrayals in England and in Italy had to do with what the jury and the judges decided?
Well, first, I don't want to make it look like the bad portrayals were only there. They're also happening in America. But I feel like they had so much to do with this. Amanda was being judged based on her character. It didn't seem to have almost anything to do with the evidence. When I was there, I saw every single day I was in court, I saw jury members sleeping through Amanda's defense. It seems like they'd already convicted her, and that means they felt like they...
You actually saw jurors sleeping?
Yes, literally every single day I was in court. The prosecutor sleeps, the jury sleep. I've seen people on the stand, the president even answering his cell phone while the trial's going on. But every time the prosecutor spoke, the jury was wide awake.
Janet, are you hoping somehow that, I guess the U.S. government has been in contact with Amanda and her family. Are you hoping they're going to somehow now get more involved?
You bet. We've already received letters from Maria Cantwell saying that she's going to be talking to Hillary Clinton, and they are working on trying to get some things resolved and working on the appeal process moving a little faster.
I know it's just a horrific day for both of you, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Janet Huff, Madison Paxton as well. I hope to talk to you in the future.
Thank you very much.
My next guest has been following the case since it began. They have very strong opinions about the verdict. With us now, legal analyst Lisa Bloom, also Douglas Preston, a journalist and author of the book The Monster of Florence, and from Perugia, Italy, Barbie Lazza Nadeau, who's reporting on the Knox trial for Newsweek and as well as the website The Daily Beast. Lisa, what's your take on today's verdict?
my take is that the jury probably reached their verdict based on the scant evidence that they had in front of them. But nevertheless, based on the evidence, they did have very bizarre behavior from Amanda Knox after the murder of her roommate. They had her cartwheeling in the police station, lying to the police, which she acknowledges that she did. She put herself at the crime scene, said she heard Ms. Kirchner's screams, and then she changed her story and said she wasn't even there. That's enough evidence in the American system to convict someone, and people have been convicted on that kind of evidence of just bizarre behavior after a murder here. In my opinion, that's not enough. It's certainly not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And because she's a young female accused of sexually assaulting and murdering another young female without any history of crime, violence, threats, attacks, or even anger, I need more than that. I need physical evidence. And my view of the physical evidence in this case is it just was not sufficient beyond a reasonable doubt. But I have to say, I think the jury did have enough evidence in this case to convict.
Barbie, the prosecutor said that there was DNA evidence on a knife. The defense said there was mishandling of the DNA evidence. What kind of mishandling are they alleging?
Well, the problem with the knife has always been that the sample on the blade of the knife that was attributed to Meredith Kirchner was so small that they couldn't double test it. And obviously to the jury, they put value on the knife anyway, even though many the forensic experts said that knife shouldn't have been valued because the DNA on the blade wasn't double tested. But the jury obviously didn't agree with that.
And in terms of the appeal process, what happens now, Barbie?
Well, there's an automatic process here in Italy. The judge has 90 days to issue what he calls a sentenza, which is the motivazione, which is the reason he gave the decision he did today. After that report is filed, then the defense has 45 days in which to file their appeal. After that, 90 plus 45 days, then the appeal has to be heard within 1 year.
Doug, do you believe she's innocent? Do you hold out much hope for this appeal?
Well, a lot of my Italian sources say that she'll be acquitted on appeal, but the conviction of her now really has nothing to do with the very weak evidence presented, almost non-existent. It has everything to do with saving the career of a very powerful prosecutor who himself is under indictment. And what happened was that he announced to the world prematurely that he had found the killer, and then who was Amanda Knox. And then 2 weeks later, they found the real killer. And instead of being able to admit his mistake, he and the police spent an entire year collecting evidence to try to prove that Amanda Knox was somehow connected with this actual killer.
Because there's another guy who's already been convicted of the murder.
That's right. He's been convicted. His DNA is all over the place. His bloody fingerprints are everywhere. He did it, and he did it by himself. But the problem is that the prosecutor couldn't admit this because his entire career is in the balance in another case. He's under indictment for abuse of office. And if he made a catastrophic mistake like this, his career is over. So he had to prove or show that Amanda Knox was somehow connected with this murder. That's the motive here.
Barbie, do you believe that? Do you believe that this has a lot to do with the prosecutor and his agenda?
Well, actually, there are two prosecutors on this case. There were pro-prosecutors. Emanuele Comedi was the other prosecutor on this case. Prosecutor Menini is under indictment, and his sentence will be heard January 22nd in an unrelated case. But I don't personally think, having followed this case, having been at every single hearing for the last 11 months, I don't think this was really an invention of the prosecution. I think it was actually a set of circumstances that worked against Amanda Knox from the very beginning, starting with her own admission, starting with her own false confession. She said she was in the house. She said she heard the screams, and I don't think anyone ever got past that, even though she retracted the statement, she changed her mind. But I think even in the United States, if you say, I was in the house when someone was murdered, and then you say, well, actually, I want to change my mind, you'd still go to court. You would still absolutely have to go to trial. And I think, I was surprised that I was a little bit surprised today. I thought it could have gone either way. But the jury and the judges, more the judges probably than the jury, there were two judges on this case. They put a lot of value in the DNA evidence. There were 5 spots of mixed DNA and blood found in the house. There was the knife. There was the DNA from Raffaele Sollecito on the blood clasp of Meredith Kirchner's bra that was cut off her body after she was killed. The jury obviously valued that DNA evidence. I think that weighed more than any of the circumstantial evidence.
I want to talk to Lisa and to Doug when we come back about her behavior and about what she told police when she was first brought in. So we'll talk about that after the break. We'll also talk about the appeal and look ahead for what comes next. Later, our investigation to the murder